Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. So I only have a few questions over on the forum, so it looks like we'll finally get to grab some Twitch questions, assuming that they're good enough questions to make it into the video and not just discussion topics I've done a million times before. We'll see about that, though. I'm sure there are some questions that I'm almost expecting to pop up in the Twitch chat, but we'll see. We'll see. It's always a surprise for me whether or not they get included in the video. Before we get started, though, I do want to do a shout out to our sponsors. I want to do that at the start of the show, and I'm trying to exercise doing that more frequently because I'm fairly inconsistent when it comes to doing the sponsor list here at the beginning. Big reason for that is because I tend to forget to change certain things before I do it live, but since I'm actually going to edit this video, I don't need to make the changes, so it shouldn't be too bad. Anyway, let's go over our sponsor list. Of course, we have Khuja Cross and the Advent FC on Jenova as our patron of light. Definitely trying to support combating hashtag demonetized over on YouTube. Hasn't been too bad as of late, but there are other things going on with YouTube nowadays. There's always something going on with YouTube. There's always something where it's like, you know, people don't get stuff in their subscriber box, or some things get demonetized for like really weird reasons. I don't know, dude. There's always something going on, but he's been someone who's been supporting above and beyond every month when it comes to combating the hashtag demonetized thing. So thank you, Khuja Cross, the Advent FC on Jenova. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's been an image on your screen throughout a lot of this. On Twitch, you're just seeing my ugly face, which you get to see enough as it is. And we're going to move over into our standard sponsors. We have Rendil Gaming, we have Sabo Empire, Mrhappy, Red Wings of the Baron FC on Solera, Fray Blackheart, Cidus, Oreo on Shiva, Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh, Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, Sploda, That Lane Weeb, Ashen, Emiya of Cerberus, Argoti, Tristam of Midgardsormr, Fafarian, Rendil, Giraffeswillrule, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. However, we have our elite sponsors. We have Just One Fox, Shadow Link on the Tomberry server, Dom, Asuka Wake from Jenova, Lemilionella of Midgardsormr, Sarah the Avalanche family on Malboro, Janhyua Yotsuyu, Zernik, made sure to get that one right, of Org 13, although for some reason I wrote 12. So I don't know why it doesn't say 13. I guess I just missed an I. Kifkin, the Grey Eagles on Exodus, Darkgraver, Katayoshi from Khuja, Skia Symphonia from Ragnarok, Rah Xephon from Exodus, Valor Westos, the Purple Warrior, Edric Red Steel, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC from Zodiac, Sour Cream and Tribes from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Goetia Valfer of Siren, Hirsch for Safari, Phoenix Down FC on Goblin, and Saren from Zodiac. We then have our premium sponsors. We have Kana Uzuki from the Jenova server, U-Star on Coerl, Sathal, Sarah Frost from Behemoth, Diablo, Holy Tabasco, Red Thorn Asura, Kernai Oni, Askin Hawk from Shiva, Oscar, Crass015, Mustang, the Serenity FC on Ultros, Kat Kazuma, Serial Kira on Cactar, Ignis Farragon from the Diablo server, Valestra Fanfrit, Not Quarters from Excalibur, Crovus Moonscar, Private Mikey, Spike, Nani Kirasami, Rudy Rudiger, Tin Colossus, Killer Hackman, Rawl Jr., and Kiltastic Jones. Thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon who have been combating hashtag demonetized. Speaking of YouTube, I am working on the Melee verses. I still get the question about that. I've gone through 3 or 4 drafts of the script, and I just end up not liking it. Something's not right with the way this Melee versus is coming out to me. Maybe it's because there's 4 jobs. It feels like there's maybe a little bit too much being said about each of them. But I am working on it, and I do hope to get it out this week. I have enough free time this week where I should be able to crank that out, even while working on some Octopath videos and some other stuff that should be coming down the pipeline in the next couple weeks. But anyway, just wanted to give you an update on that since I've been getting a lot of questions about it. With that, let's go over into the Q&A. Looks like we got 7 questions over on the forums, and then we'll go over to the Twitch chat. So let's get started. All right, question number 1. Hey, Mr. Happy, what's up? So you mentioned you were going to FanFest as a person of media some short while ago. Do you get information not released to the public earlier, but as a media person, you can't divulge to your audience? So that's, normally you'd probably expect that to be a question I wouldn't take here. When it comes to FanFests, I didn't, because I went as media to FanFest for 2016 as well. And everything was a brand new surprise for me. The only time where something like that would happen generally in gaming media overall is when there's non-disclosure agreements about information in advance. For example, before Stormblood, they did a media tour where they had multiple locations, and we were able to get a bunch of information. You saw it on my channel, Mrs. channel, Mary's channel, just a ton of us having a bunch of different video content regarding all the different jobs, their new skills, all that stuff. A bunch of websites posted it. Stuff like that generally will be non-disclosure, meaning that we cannot disclose the things that we have seen until a certain date has passed. With FanFest in particular, I didn't experience that with 2016, so everything's going to be a brand new surprise for me right when November hits, and I'm looking forward to it. Going on to question number 2. Hello, mister. Hello. You got 41 posts. You ask a lot of questions. I like that. Question. I'm on the Jenova server and wondering when matching people in a random roulette, who am I matching with? Is the game trying to find the closest and best connection to my location only within my data center? Does location not actually matter? There's someone who lives on Japan but plays on the Jenova server. That means it could randomly match with them in the game. It never match us because we live so far apart. So you're confusing data center connections and peer-to-peer connections. So when a game is hosted in a data center, it means that all the connections have to go through that data center. Your servers are on that data center. The instance servers that you're on are on that data center. It's in a centralized location. So your distance from the data center is the thing that determines your latency with the game. And your latency with the game will not determine somebody else's latency with the game. What you're asking, but it seems like you're confusing it with, is peer-to-peer connections, where one of the players would act as a host, which doesn't happen in Final Fantasy XIV. That's more common with games like first-person shooters or even some online PvP games, such as fighting games, for example. They tend to use peer-to-peer connections as well. But that's not going to be the case here. It doesn't matter where somebody lives in relation to you. All that matters is your location in relation to the data center. In case you're wondering, the data center's relation, obviously we have in North America, Europe, and Japan. Can't speak for Europe and Japan because I don't know them off the top of my head, but most people seem to have traced the data center, at least since its most recent move in North America, to California. So that would be where it is. So if you're on the East Coast, you'll have a higher latency on average than someone who lives on the West Coast. All right, question number 3. Hiya, Haps. Hi. So, I don't know why I do that. So there was information that surfaced on Reddit regarding Dragoon's piercing debuff. Yoshi P stated at the Kyoto Fate Part 2 that devs were considering taking it away entirely or giving it to the ranged. Didn't see that information, so that's news to me. I must have missed that. They said this would be to take away from the group synergy so that more groups would be likely to consider Black Mage Samurai for spots in the groups. Never really had a problem with Samurai, but Black Mage is a class that forces extremely risky behavior in order to do well. As an overall risk to bring to a group. So the only time Black Mage incurs risk is when you're bad at it. I'll just be straight up. It incurs no more risk than any other job. The only thing is, I mean, it's a long-standing meme, you know, take the hit so you can, you know, keep casting, you know, just ignore the mechanics so you can keep casting. But it's not inherently a more risky job, but you need to be good at it. You need to know how long you can stand still. You need to know how to do stutter step casting. You need to know when your triple cast go off. You need to know where to place your ley lines, when to teleport back to your ley lines, when to teleport to another player, making sure your other players are in a spot that actually works for your teleport. So it's something that requires a lot more forward thinking and a lot of strategy to actually get the fights out. Players I find who are really good at Black Mage are generally good with spatial awareness overall, because they are people who look at fights in entirely different ways to someone like a melee or even one of the other casters. It's actually quite impressive. If you want to see a good example of that, you should actually check out Sphia. Sphia is someone who does a lot of ultimate stuff, and they have done it on Black Mage. It's a wonderful thing to watch ultimate being done on Black Mage, and you can see in footage like that that it isn't that they're playing riskier, it's that they're playing smarter, and that it looks riskier because of the way that they're actually playing. A bad Black Mage will definitely take risks they don't need to, or they'll sacrifice so much DPS because they don't understand the positioning properly that it's going to look like just a complete disaster. So yeah, that's all it is. So for the debuff change though, Dragoon has a lot of debuff stacking right now. The piercing debuff used to be the big thing that they were looked at for. They also have their eye now for a damage buff for both themselves and an ally, and they have an AoE crit buff. And crit generally, as expansions go on, is one of the strongest stats, having higher crit chance, having higher critical hit rate. It's all something that just compounds, and as more and more of it becomes available, it becomes stronger and stronger. So I feel like them not having piercing debuff wouldn't be the end of the world. I generally am of the opinion that the debuffs that just provide flat damage increases for specific damage types, slashing, piercing, and I was gonna say the blunt debuff, but you know, it is still kind of redundant for the same reasons. But I always found that the amount of gameplay interaction that those provide is so small that I wouldn't just mind getting rid of them altogether. Generally, if something's going to exist in the game, I want it to have an interaction. I want it to be something that that just interacts with gameplay more. And flat damage increases like that just don't interact with gameplay because you're always going to be applying them because they're part of your set rotations. Something like Trick Attack has the interaction where your teammates generally want to time their burst for that short window. Piercing debuff is like, well, it's just always going to be there as long as the Dragoon's not dead, so it just doesn't offer much. So I'm of the opinion they could get rid of it altogether. It's the same with Protect. My Twitch chat just brought that up. It's the same with Protect. It offers no interaction with the gameplay whatsoever. The only downside is if you die, you need to recast it. That's it. That's the only interaction that it actually provides with the gameplay, and it's just so uninteresting. So I think it'd be fine, but I think that it's not just about getting rid of it on Dragoon. I'd just like to see them be gone overall. And he said, a side note, if they take the piercing, as a red mage, if they take the piercing debuff away entirely, do you think they'll buff the OGCDs that benefit from it? They'd probably make battle adjustments. If they were to get rid of something like that, they'd have to make battle adjustments, obviously. But so yeah, they'd probably compensate them to some degree. Question number 4. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hope you're having a wonderful day. It's been a good day. I was playing MapleStory 2 all day, just killing stuff as an assassin, trying to get a feel for some of the different classes in that game. So it's been a pretty good day. My question is, do you think it's possible to beat a Savage Raid with no Soulstone? Back before Stormblood, my friends tried it with Titan Extreme. Failed, but it was stupidly fun. I know you can do Titan Extreme without Soulstones. It's become increasingly more difficult as expansions have gone on to beat something with an entire party with no Soulstones. Mostly because we've only been gaining new abilities for jobs, and some of the abilities that were class exclusive before have been pruned to some degree. So you have a lot less available to you to actually go about your business. So things like, things that require your tank stance, or, well, those are all job skills. It's just, you don't get a whole lot. I don't want to say no, because somebody could very easily prove me wrong with some really fancy strategies and stuff like that. I'll say it's definitely not encouraged, and it's becoming less and less encouraged as time goes on. I think, as much trouble as it would be, I do think classes are going to be retired almost entirely. It's a lot of work to do that for what's just basically clarity throughout the game. There's no confusion with class job. There's no people trying to do things like you're suggesting or deliberately do them in things like the Duty Finder. And it's just a system that's archaic and has no real value in the game anymore. It's just a matter that removing it has some lore implication problems. It's a big systematic change that requires a lot of back-end work to actually make it happen. So as much as, so things like this can be fun, they'll probably remove them as long as it doesn't provide too much of a technical difficulty. They've even brought it up that they have to consider it at some point, that maybe it would be the next expansion, but who knows? It may just be too monumental of a task to actually remove it from the game and keep everything working functionally, that they might just stay there just because. Question number 5. Hello, Mr. Haps. Hello. Sorry, this is trust me, you're apologizing for this being a long one. Look, I'm going to scroll down so everyone can see it. This is not a long one. You are very considerate, and this is not even a long one, so I appreciate that. Hello, by the way. So I was wondering about the squadron situation, since it would be wonderful to have new dungeons to solo queue with them. My question goes as follows. Would it be possible with the new companion app they can make it to send the squadron to missions and training from the app itself? Honestly, I think that's something almost everyone expected you to be able to do. Send retainers on ventures, send squadron out on squadron missions, and it's something they may expand on in the future. The companion app, they said, will have more features in the future. And it almost feels like a given that this would be the eventual progression. Now, I don't know how the data itself from the game regarding squadrons is to be fed in the companion app, and that's probably the big thing that's going to hold them back from doing it at some point. I feel like this is just things people expect the app to be able to do at some point. I don't think you're that far-fetched for saying it. And you even say, like, right after that, you think they could do that with retainers also. I don't see why not. But I don't know the back-end technical stuff of it. I don't know how difficult their not inventory management, their information management on the back end and feeding it into the app. I don't know how difficult that is, because I don't do it. So yeah, I'd like to see it, and it just feels like a natural progression for the companion app at some point. All right, question number 6. Hey there, Mr. Happy. Hello. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Long-time viewer, first-time asker. Well, good to have you. I have a bonus of just having an awesome day. You know what? I'll take a sip of coffee to that in the middle of the question. I gotta drink it because it's gonna go cold if I don't. And on to the question. Seeing as how we only get 3 beast tribes in Heavensward, do you believe it'll be the case with Stormblood? Yeah, I think we have the 3 beast tribes. I think we'll get a set of allied beast tribe quests, and that's it. I think it already shows when they did the 4.1 Part 1 preview, beast tribes weren't brought up at all. They did say it wasn't all the information regarding 4.4, but I feel like beast tribes are one of those things that when they are in a patch, they're standard and expected. And so I don't expect us to get any more beast tribes in Stormblood, and I expect that to be the pattern that goes on into future expansions. I wouldn't even be surprised for us in the future to maybe only get 2 beast tribes and them to just take those resources, whether it be the writing, the story, the effort in actually crafting this quest line or designing these dailies, and I expect them to take that and maybe move it elsewhere. There's not a whole lot added to the game by having a ton of beast tribes outside of maybe another leveling source. There's already so many leveling sources in the game. I don't think we need to have, you know, 2 combat beast tribes and a crafter beast tribe. I think 1 combat, 1 crafter. The only advantage I find to having 3 is when you do the allied beast tribe quests towards the end, it's infinitely more interesting if you have more parties present. I know the Heavensward one was great, the Realm Reborn one was great, so I hope the Stormblood one will be great, and I hope going forward they'll continue to be great. So yeah, no, I don't think we're going to get any more beast tribes here in Stormblood. And with that, we already move on to the last question of the forum. So hopefully the Twitch chat's got some decent questions, because like I said, not a whole lot going on the forums this week. Ahaps, let's see what's in this week's Question Roulette. So we got, I don't know if it's Bass or Base Rage, so I'm going to say it's Bass Rage. A hard question and against wasting Quest EXP. Well, I waste Quest EXP all the time, so I'm going to go with a hard question, and I hope it's not about rocks, because that would be a terrible joke, and I'm going to give you a stare if this is something about rocks, because it's a hard question. All right, so let's see. What do you think should be the hardest content or aspect in 14? Fights, crafts, or gathering? Crafting a gathering should not be a difficult task. It can be something that requires skill and gear, like it is now, although most people tend to macro their rotations now, so who the hell even knows if it could be considered difficult. But fights, content, actual, like, gameplay content, something that's engaging, should be what is the most difficult aspect of 14. I don't see any reason for it to be anything else. Most MMOs are about combat. That's just how it is. Crafting a gathering is often more tedious and time-consuming than it is difficult. 14 has managed to make it a pretty good balance of all of the above, but it still ultimately falls down to it's there to provide resources to the game and still, to some degree, provide some skill expression. So fights, easy question, easy life. So anyway, that's going to be the last question over on the forum. So hopefully the Twitch chat has some good questions. So this is going to be a very short Mondays with Mr. Happy, which I don't particularly mind because it makes the editing a little easier. So Twitch chat, let's see what you got. Fingers crossed that it's some good stuff. All right, so we got a question here from the Twitch chat. Mr. Happy, with us halfway through 2018, how are your goals for 2018 holding up for Twitch and YouTube? Anything else you want to do this year? On the Twitch side of things have actually been good. I wanted to do more sponsored content across both of the channels, both the YouTube and the Twitch. YouTube side of thing, haven't had too much. I did do a bunch of Dissidia Opera Omnia sponsored YouTube stuff, and I felt that went really well. I was really happy with the end result of that set of sponsored content. Over on Twitch, it's been a really interesting dynamic because I found myself having a lot more opportunities to do sponsored Twitch content, and it's always a bit nerve-wracking. You know, when people see sponsored, they don't expect you to they expect you to not have opinions, pretty much, because you know you're being paid, so of course you're gonna put the smile on, like, ah, yeah. For me, it's always about I like to do sponsor stuff for games that I don't have much experience with, or I already have so much experience that I know that I already like the game. So that transparency has been something that I expected to be a much bigger problem this year, since I wanted to move into more sponsored stuff, and it hasn't been. I guess the precedent that I set for sponsored content over the last couple of years across both channels has I guess carried over pretty well. I mean, most people are entertained by my little snippets, like, hey, Steel Series, what's that? Oh man, I'm so glad I get to listen to this game with my awesome Steel Series Wireless Pro Arctis Pro wireless headset, man. Oh, it's so great. You know, man, where can you get one? Oh, it's just 16% off. It's 16% off till July 26th. Why don't you just type !Steel Series? And heck, even when it's past July 26th, you still get 10% off. You just do shit like that. You make it fun. You make it exciting. And on both Twitch and YouTube, I feel like that's been going well. YouTube side of things have been having a harder time coming up with ideas for content or following through with ideas for content. So it's been an okay year there. But Twitch, I've been very happy with the results for this year. So good question. And I'd be willing to go into more detail, but I want to make sure there's time for other questions here. So let's go into the next question from the Twitch chat. Oh, I like this question, so let's go with this one. Hi, Mr. Happy, long-time lurker, first-time question. No, you know, normally people don't bother saying that in the Twitch chat. I think that's like one of the first times I've seen people like format it like that, where it normally pops up on the forums. I like that. How do you feel about older MMOs turning to the mobile route? RuneScape, Lineage 2, Adventure. Oh my God, Adventure Quest. I forgot about that game. Dude, I used to play that game in like computer lab and in school all the time because it was one of the only games that wasn't blocked. Is it a viable revival source for a dying MMO at a later life cycle? I feel like those games are already so like not resource intensive. It almost feels like a natural progression. One of the easiest ways to move something into being, I guess, a viable revenue source is to put it on a mobile device. People are so busy nowadays. A lot of people get the majority of their gaming done on their phone. And I know that a lot of people would probably dispute that. I'm sure there's studies out there that dispute that, but even people who are not gamers generally like to distract themselves with applications on their phone. They'll at least find one of those, like a Candy Crush or something, that really sucks them in, and they spend a lot of their time on it. So by doing this, you open it up to what is essentially the largest gaming market in the world, because most people have smartphones in this day and age. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. And of course, then there's also the option of tablets. You know, a lot of those games are more designed for the tablet than they are necessarily for the phone. And it's just because there's a wider screen to work with, there's more space, more resolution. So it's, I think it's a good idea. And I think games, as they find that one of their markets is dying, adapting and moving to what is considered the modern market is a good idea. Is it a guaranteed success? No, because games don't necessarily play the same on one device as they do the other. See, Final Fantasy XI Mobile, which will probably never come out, is going to play nothing like the original, so it's a toss-up whether or not it's actually going to be something that continues to be successful. But I think it's a good idea. I think you're better off doing it than not doing it and just letting something gradually dwindle down until there's really nothing left. All right, we got another one. I think I've answered this one in previous weeks, but thoughts on a possibility of a new crafting or gathering job? I don't think there's a reason to do another crafting or gathering job, because when you do one new crafter or gatherer, you run into the issue that it needs to integrate itself with all of the other ones. It can't just be its own isolated thing that doesn't have recipes for stuff that you can use with the other stuff. I don't see much of a purpose other than just having another thing to level. Anything that you make a new crafter for, it's going to be the same gameplay. It's going to get macroed to hell. You know, people are just going to make a macro for it, and then it's going to be done. And the recipes, all you're doing is necessarily adding more recipes, which could have just added to the existing ones. So I just don't see it. Same with gathering. Like, unless there's a good lore implication, and that's like the only reason to add it, I just don't see a reason to, nor them doing it at any point, period. I don't think they'll ever add a new crafter or gatherer to the game. All right, we got another question from the chat, and the questions have slowed down, so this may end up being the last one, depending on if the chat comes up with anything while I'm actually doing this. So with Heavensward adding flight and Stormblood adding swimming, should we expect another movement feature? I don't know. I don't think there's a point in adding another. Like, those are basics that like people almost expect to be in every MMO nowadays, and it took us 2 expansions, one to get the first one to get the second one, and they allow you to do more interesting things with landmarks and whatnot. Like if you add landmarks underwater, you add landmarks that are, you know, require flying, or you can get more angles of them. It allows you to create a more immersive world, but in terms of gameplay aspects, it doesn't really add a whole lot. So if they do add something, it would need to be something that added to the immersive aspects of the game. And really, what other means of getting around? Teleportation we already have, which also doesn't really add much other than, you know, having to provide a lore reason for its existing. Climbing doesn't really serve a purpose because we can already get to those areas via flying. So I don't see much of a need for any other movement-based system unless they plan on adding gameplay to it. Even adding water and adding like what's it called, spearfishing, like. The gameplay aspects there are so minimal. They did so little with the swimming when they added it. And it's good because I think that swimming is a really annoying thing to design gameplay around in general. It doesn't have to be, but it most often is. So I don't see anything regarding movement ever happening. Again, I don't see a reason for it. I wouldn't be surprised to see them add more things to existing movement-based systems that make those maybe more immersive, but adding a new one altogether, it's like adding a new crafter gatherer. There's really nothing to add gameplay-wise to that. All right, and that last question was indeed the last question from the Twitch chat. We had some pretty good questions, though. And we had a couple people, we had somebody get in 2 questions. They were like, yeah, 2 questions, yeah. But anyway, thank you for the questions on both the forums and the Twitch chat. If you'd like to ask questions for Mondays with Mr. Happy, on the YouTube side of things, go to the Dream Network forum link in the description of the video. There will be a forum link there where you can ask your questions, and those will guarantee that I at least see them, and as long as they're appropriate, then I will indeed answer them. As for everything else, if you're watching on Twitch, every Sunday I record them like usually between like 12 and 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I usually start recording them there. Like this is what I'm doing right now. It's like just after 1 o'clock right now as we're wrapping it up. So if you want to ask them live, there's also that possibility. And a lot of the questions that I get asked in the Twitch chat, I don't even include in the video because they're just like real short discussions, or they're not really like questions that are fit, or they're questions I've answered before. So it's pretty easy to get a question in if you come by the Twitch chat. So definitely be sure to do that as well. But anyway, shout out the sponsors. I'll shout them out again real quick. Thank you everyone on Patreon for supporting us through hashtag demonetized over on YouTube. I'm sitting here wondering if YouTube's even working because my view count hasn't gone up on any video in the last 7 hours. So I know that's not correct. Anyway, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for the next week for Mondays with Mr. Happy. I will see you all then, and until then, take care.